I think that's working now. So we're being recorded as we speak. So very warm welcome, everybody, to today's seminar. And I'd like to say a very warm welcome to Yiorgos, Gadanakis and Georgios Pexas. And they're going to be talking to us today about the ENVISION project. So Yiorgos is an associate professor of agricultural business management in the School of Agriculture Policy and Development, and he's been involved in several EU-funded programs, with the two most recent ones being RECAP and ENVISION, the project that we'll be hearing about today. And Georgios is a postdoctoral research fellow who's also working at Reading. He's been working in the school since September 2020, and Georgios holds a PhD in environmental and economic impact assessment methods of agri-food production systems, and he's focused on the development and use of comprehensive sustainability assessment methods encompassing life cycle analysis and other assessment tools. And so the ENVISION project is a Horizon 2020 project. Its full title is Co-Producing Earth Observation Based Monitoring Tools for Sustainable Agriculture, and we'll be hearing more about the work that's taking place within the project today. So thank you again, Yiorgos and Georgios, for joining us. And if you could share your screen so we can see your slides, that'd be great. And as in previous weeks, if you have a question, we'll wait till the end. If you can raise your hand, we'll answer your questions one by one, or you can type questions in the chat. So over to you, Yiorgos and Georgios. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lawrence, for the introduction. So just a brief overview of what we will present today. So I will give you a short of introduction about the ENVISION project and what's the background information, why ENVISION was conceived as an idea. Then I will kick off the discussion over the co-production of services and products, and then Yiorgos will follow up with describing the design thinking method and the different phases that this involves, and then some take-home messages that we can take from this project and the experience. So if we move to the next slide, please. Okay, so first of all, a few things about why and how we came up with this idea. So first of all, it is a continuation of the RECAP project, but as we know, the environment is codependent and deeply interlinked with the agriculture, and therefore with agricultural practices, and therefore any agricultural practices would have an impact into the environment and vice versa. So therefore the climate and the components of the environment can also deeply affect agriculture, and thus create a vicious cycle over there. And therefore, what is needed, and what we had realized also from the experience with RECAP, is that we need to develop a system, or if you like, a set of monitoring tools that will enable the farmers in order, and also other stakeholders, in order to employ sound agricultural management practices and therefore improve the sustainability of the sector. So therefore, the ENVISION is a Horizon 2020 innovation project, which is focusing on the development of commercial services that will make the use of Earth observation data, will make use of the Earth observation data in order to monitor the environmental practices for sustainable agriculture. So it is a toolbox which is used for continuous systematic and monitoring of sustainable agriculture practices. We've got like the 13 partners involved into the project from 7 different countries, as you see in the map. So we've got Lithuania, Cyprus, Greece, Belgium, Serbia, Greece and Slovenia. And in addition to the core partners, we're also engaging with 16 lighthouse customers that they will participate as the early adopters of the tool, of the ENVISION tools, and they will help us and will provide us with feedback in order to co-produce and develop further the services. But let's focus more on the aims of the ENVISION. So what ENVISION is aiming to achieve, so the overarching aim is to address the need for continuous, large-scale and uninterrupted monitoring of the farm management activities with regards to sustainability. So we are moving away from snapshots of the current status to a more continuous and overall observation. So in this way, we will reinforce monitoring of, first of all, the cross-compliance measures that they are enforced from the Common Agricultural Policy and any other agri-environmental policies that they are related to greening. And therefore, we should be able to identify practices that might lead to environmental degradation. Now, the toolbox that will be provided and will be developed by the ENVISION project is there to facilitate the monitoring of the cultivation of crop types, to identify different crop types, and that was also an algorithm which was developed through the RECAP project. Can be used for monitoring soil organic carbon, the vegetation status, the crop growth and the different stages of development, and then be able to compare and identify parcels in organic or conventional farming, grassland mowing and plowing, and also another important parameter there is to measure soil erosion. And now to achieve those goals, we need to, and this is the role of us as facilitators, is to co-produce those data products and services. And the University of Reading is the leaders of work package 2. Okay, so why co-production? So co-production implies collaboration between stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders that we have identified in this project? So first of all, we're talking about the citizens, we're talking about the policy makers, the researchers, and the technology developers. So therefore, the co-production of those services will involve the collaboration between different stakeholders, those that we've mentioned, in order to jointly determine problems that will need to be addressed. And all these are absolutely important ingredients in a recipe for effective, tailored solutions, particularly in a diverse sector like it is the agri-food sector. Okay, now, what is co-production? What are the main characteristics? What are the key areas that we will need to consider? So first of all, stakeholders will need to be voiced, and therefore all the different opinions will need to be considered and will need to be taken into account when we are designing the different products. And this is because we have diverse opinions, and therefore we might need also to tailor the solutions for different contexts within the countries that they are, not only in the EU, but also in the consortium as well. The stakeholders will need to be involved from the beginning until the end of the project. So therefore, there needs to be a continuation in that loop of feedback and testing, as we will see later on, and when Yiorgos will explain more the methodology of design thinking. And then the stakeholders will need to actively be engaged in the development of the products and the services. And finally, they need to test, update, and evaluate the products that we will be designing and producing through the ENVISION program in an iterative process. So therefore, there will be a constant repetition of what is happening here. Yiorgos, now the stakeholders. So before Yiorgos is discussing the different steps that they are involved into the design thinking method that we have employed, it is important to meet our stakeholders and also to identify the role that those stakeholders have within the project. Now, this one of the first things that we need to do in the co-production process, first of all. So we need to better understand those that they are involved into the project, develop channels of communication, develop engagement strategies, and try to keep everyone on board. So therefore, in the ENVISION project, we find technology developers. So these are the companies such as Draxis and AgroApps. We've got the academic researchers, and that would be us and the National Observatory of Athens, that they are responsible for the development of the algorithms. And we also have the future users, so the end users of the toolbox, who will test and help us update the ENVISION services and products through different business case scenarios. And here we will find the paying agencies, the certification bodies, and the individual farmers. And for the sake of time, I would not define what paying agencies and certification bodies are, but if you have any questions, let me know. I hope we all understand what we're talking here. And then finally, we have the co-production facilitators, who in this case is us, the University of Reading. And as I've mentioned, we do have experience which builds on this co-production from the VCAP project, where it's myself and Alice and Simon and Julian was involved, and now with Yiorgos, we've, let's say, developed a kind of an expertise in the area. Now you see this animation here, this circle. So what it means is that the whole process, the whole engagement is continuous. So we start from day one of the project, and we will complete this with the final deliverable of the ENVISION project. So if we want to dive a little bit deeper into the relationship and the roles of the stakeholders, we see that the research and development team, we need to consider other things, among others, which is first of all, the business planning for the commercialization and the economic viability of the ENVISION data and products, how we will use this and how this will be used sustainably by any potential end user, both within and beyond the duration of the project, beyond the project lifetime. And also we need to identify potential for future research on other needs and threats that they need to be addressed via the similar process. Okay, an important, let's say, element in this co-production of services is and also the development of the ENVISION platform, the ENVISION toolbox, is the involvement and the development of the business cases that have an active role, as I've mentioned, in the co-production, mainly because they are involved into the identification of the specific user requirements, the specific challenges and the concerns in regards to the final product of the ENVISION, and also because they will be those that they will be testing the products, and they will be reporting back any potential strengths or faults or any improvements that they will need to make, and that will be through a feedback process. Okay, so what we will be doing, what the methodology that Yiorgos will be explaining is to test and report and provide feedback and updating. So in order to realize the ENVISION aims and to exploit the potential of each stakeholder to the fullest, we structure our work in work package 2 based on a holistic concept of the design thinking approach, which is involving 5 phases: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, which Yiorgos will explain further, since he has been the main facilitator during the workshops and the different other activities, as it will be presented and discussed later on. So Yiorgos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yiorgos. Apologies, first of all, for any mismatch in what you said with what everybody was seeing in the screen. So as Yiorgos very nicely presented, co-production is all about a non-linear iterative process with loops that are repeated multiple times throughout the project lifetime. And mainly, the concept through which we're working in is one that aims to help a team of developers understand the users that may require some user profiling, understanding their needs, challenges, concerns, and any potential issues that they may see with the technologies that a project like ENVISION develops, or any other issues that they may be dealing with that the development team might have missed. There is also an aim to challenge any assumptions, as particularly from the side of the research and development teams, because maybe we don't understand the users very well. Together to redefine the problems and, of course, design and test innovative solutions to address those. And also, we'll be working, as Yiorgos mentioned, through the 5 phases of design thinking that has been standardized as a framework so far. And we have here the empathize phase, the definition, ideation, prototype development, and testing of the prototype until we get the commercial product. And now we'll see a few things about what we actually did in the context of ENVISION through each of these phases. So in the empathize, the aim, as we said, is to try to understand our users' needs as best as possible, together with any potential concerns. And this will help us anticipate potential emerging threats and risks, particularly when we develop a commercial product. We don't want it to fail, not only economically, but we want it to be something that is desirable and that users want to use even beyond the project lifetime and want to advertise to their peers. So we maximize the outreach of the product, right? In order to understand our users, we use interviews and we observe them at their current workflow. And we form some focus groups with potential users within the consortium, with whom we hold detailed workshops, long-hour workshops, and surveys. So in ENVISION, we had some of those very long-hour workshops in the first 6 months of the project, particularly with paying agencies and certification bodies across Europe, because those organizations are interested in using the ENVISION products, particularly to boost their efficiency in the cross-compliance monitoring part. Then we explored other potential users, and those were organizations outside of the consortium, still paying agencies and certification bodies, but also farm managers, bigger farmer unions that wanted to understand those technologies and see what the benefits are from adopting them. And in order to do that, we used some virtual tools. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, we had to engage with everyone online. So you might know some of these tools, such as Miro, Easy Retro, Jamboard, and Menti. Primarily virtual whiteboard platforms, let's say, trying to bring everyone around on the same table and get their opinions to gather information and feedback. And at the same time, we also distributed questionnaires and surveys that were a bit more impersonal, but it was the best way for us to try and reach organizations that maybe have not received news, let's say, about the ENVISION project or any other similar projects that develop digital solutions for agriculture. And here you can see some screenshots of how the sessions looked like. Obviously, we have a lot of material that you can see on another time if you contact us, by all means, but there wasn't any purpose in trying to fit everything here. So on the top left of your screen, you can see part of a session where we tried to understand one of the organization's current workflow. So this is the Agricultural Paying Agency of Cyprus. And we were trying to understand how they currently work to conduct their on-the-spot checks on the fields. So we had the different ENVISION services, and we asked them, okay, in order for you to identify the different crops, how do you collect data? How do you synthesize and analyze those data? And what are the specific requirements that you need to check and report to the European Union for cross-compliance? So we did that for every service, and that helped us identify potential areas for improvement. And to also give them the chance to explore their own workflow and understand better if they have any issues with what is currently going on within their organization. And on the bottom right, let's say you see that we were shaping our discussions in a way that we gave the developers the chance, as Drax is here, for example, is one of the development companies. We gave them the chance to be the speakers by presenting what ENVISION is willing to offer or what ENVISION can offer. And then we had the potential users with the Cyprus Agricultural Paying Agency as active listeners. Active listeners means we urge them to think at the same time as they were receiving the information, okay, how does this actually benefit me? What more do I want? And then we flipped the roles on the table, and we had the end users asking, what more can you do? How can you address this other need that we haven't voiced so far? So we're trying to find middle solutions in order to progress to co-production by making sure we don't leave anything, any stone unturned. Now, one of the things that we particularly focused on, as we mentioned earlier, was to try to understand emerging threats. And so we urged all stakeholders to think not only within their business's boundaries, but also beyond those and beyond the project lifetime. This is important in order to develop products that are viable in the future, and to try to identify problems that may rise even after the project lifetime, which is, as we've seen from this experience, it is what concerns the users the most, particularly those who are part of the consortium, that they are going to receive a product and then no one is going to take care of the maintenance or the support of this product beyond the project lifetime. One of the important elements here to consider in trying to understand the users, and especially when you're trying to manage many different users from many different backgrounds with different ambitions and different types of expertise in their teams, is to try to format their responses in a way that ensures you're getting the quality and amount of information that you want, particularly if you want to compare those. So we use the user story format here, and we try to make everyone, try to explain to everyone that they should respond in a short piece of text and provide only the essential elements of what they require from ENVISION, particularly answering who is asking for a requirement, what are they expecting from ENVISION to deliver in terms of solutions to their problems, and why is this particularly important from their perspective. And so, for example, we had inspectors in the different organizations. This is just an example of the different user stories that we received that said, as inspectors, this answers to the who, we want to visualize maps of fields with environmental control points. So this tells us exactly what they are looking for so that we can identify problem areas quickly. And why is this important for this particular field of expertise, let's say. Then we moved on to the definition of the problems. And here, what we essentially did was we reflected on the information that we had collected in the previous phase. And we did that again by holding smaller interactive workshops with both the developers and the end users, trying to refine their responses and try to clarify any misconceptions that we identified till that point. And of course, we try to analyze a few, to analyze these responses using some basic statistics, just to understand the frequency of some of these responses and the prevalence of some of these responses. And at this stage, one of the main tasks was to prioritize the user stories and essentially prioritize the problems that we've identified. And for this, we used tasks of ranking, essentially asking the different stakeholders, how do you rank based on your perspective? How do you rank those different problems? Try to get a weight by effort ratio. So how important a problem is by how feasible it is, how easy it is to address it. And the urgency, again, from all different perspectives. So how urgent it is for a paying agency versus how urgent it is from the perspective of a developer to address a particular problem. And this task actually has many dangers in it. And it is very important that we try to frame each of the problems in a way that facilitates solutions and not just try to identify them and present them to the developers, because that's going to cause chaos in the development team. We're trying to, of course, consider all the different problems and not to leave any stakeholders feeling that they haven't been heard. But at the same time, we're trying to be realistic in what can be achieved within the project lifetime and always be aware of any biases. So for example, if someone feels very strong about a particular problem only because they're coming from that field of expertise, we definitely need to address that and not let it be carried over throughout the project lifetime like that, because it's going to cause confusion later down the line. After we've done this, we moved in the idea generation. And again, we all sat around the table and we tried to brainstorm and think of potential solutions to address those problems we had prioritized on. And here we obviously had to focus more on technical meetings because there was an emphasis on the development team. They are the ones that understand best what is feasible in terms of solutions. But also we asked them to prepare some wireframes, so a slice essentially of what the services and platforms and all the products would be like that we can share with the end users, and then we asked them to give some feedback and reflect on those wireframes through workshops. And here is an example of the wireframe. So the developers would present this, which is not an entirely functional aspect of the platform of these tools, but it can give you some vital information about what to expect. And then the users would reflect on that and say, for example, I need more keys on here, I need this tool, or this information, I don't want it to be visible, etc. And the way that we work through this ideation phase is particularly through online platforms that facilitate interactive discussions, and it is important at this stage that everyone understands how the different tasks progress, that there is a transparency. And this is a snapshot of the Trello platform that our development team chooses to use. And for example, you can see on the on your right side, there is a column that says pending, which might indicate a task that is currently ongoing, about adding more information for a mowing detection algorithm, for example. And then on the very right side, you can see the ones that everyone considers that they have been addressed. So the development of the product moves on like this. But again, this is an important part because it is important that everyone understands how the development of the technologies progresses. Now, at the end of this, obviously, we're going to reach a prototype, and we are still actually currently in the ideation phase. So this is now a phase that we expect to happen in the next 6 months, 6 to 9 months, I'd say. So the prototype phase. Once those refinements have been made on the wireframes, then the development team will take everything into consideration and develop the prototype version. First of all, reflecting on potential problems and mistakes themselves, and then through technical meetings and workshops, show that to the end users. The end users will take it then in a testing phase, where they will further refine the prototype until we reach the ideal solution. Okay, this will happen through a feedback and update loop, as Yiorgos also mentioned. Again, using the same online platforms for feedback. Also by establishing a communication channel directly to the developers. And this will happen at least 3 times from now until the end of the project. So again, iterative process, not only one run. It is important that we keep on refining the prototype until we have something that can be commercially available. So far we've discussed about essentially an outcome-based approach, but from our perspective as academic researchers, we've identified that there are a few aspects of the co-production that need to be addressed, and we've seen similar, let's say, problem areas in other European projects that follow similar frameworks. So we consider that it is really important that throughout the project lifetime, we get feedback on the co-production. Okay, not only on the outcomes, not only on the progress of the commercial products, but also on the actual co-production activities. So how every stakeholder consider, first of all, co-production to be successful. in terms of engagement, in terms of communications, in terms of having their needs and concerns heard. It is important that we try to identify barriers in the co-production. So if we realize that there is a big cultural barrier between, let's say, particularly in large consortia like the ENVISION that operate throughout Europe, you have some countries that work on a different pace or on a different schedule than others. So it is important to address all those potential issues and do that in the beginning of the project before they cause confusion and lead to an ineffective product in the end. And of course, understanding such problem areas and exploring further areas of improvement helps us build a more robust network of collaborators, and that we're going to take beyond the project lifetime, right? So to conclude, essentially, and to give you some take-home messages from our experience with co-production in the context of ENVISION and from the lessons learned from RECAP as well, it is important that we have a structured framework in our mind before we get into the production phase, before we get into the actual project. And we found that the design thinking is a widely accepted framework. And it is important to follow all those 5 phases: the empathize, definition, ideation, prototype, and testing. It is important to particularly emphasize on understanding the stakeholders and keeping everyone actively engaged from the beginning till the end. We ourselves in ENVISION, we have come across multiple occasions when someone felt that they were left a bit outside of the production process, even if other stakeholders felt like they didn't have anything meaningful to offer at that stage of production. But it is important that as facilitators, we keep everyone in the loop, we keep everyone updated, and we try to get them in frequent communications to understand how the project progresses. It is important to continuously gather outcome-based but also activity-based feedback. And as facilitators, it is important to be adaptable and flexible, to be able to accommodate the needs of the stakeholders and the problems that may arise while the project progresses. And of course, doing that in a way that does not sacrifice the outcome-related targets. Thank you very much for your time. And this is the contact information for our entire team: Simon, Alice, me, and Yiorgos. We welcome any questions, and of course, we welcome any further communications if you want to find out more about the project. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you both. It was excellent. And can I just ask people to show their appreciation with the applause button that you'll find in MS Teams? Trying to replicate the face-to-face experience as best we can. So yeah, thank you for that. That was excellent. And really interesting to see the innovation action outputs. So the as in previous weeks, we're going to ask for questions now. So if you have a question, if you could raise your hand using the hand raise function, or if you type it in the chat, I'll read it out for you. I've got some questions to kick off whilst people are thinking about their own. Yeah, it was really interesting to see this approach with the moving from sort of empathizing through to testing the prototypes. I just wondered, in the discussions you'd had with stakeholders, if the issue of sort of ethics had come up with regard to access of these new technologies, because in a UK context where there's a lot of interest in using sort of Earth observation data and sort of quite high-tech monitoring systems, which is sometimes at odds with the current profile of farming in the UK, and sort of access to technology is sometimes being posed as posing an ethical challenge, whereby certain types of farmers would be able to report more effectively, but not necessarily be the most effective in their practice. Is that something that's come up in your discussions around the ethics of access?
Definitely, and not only ethics of access, because most of the stakeholders, particularly the paying agencies, they had in their mind that they do have the access to operate with these technologies, but particularly we had many farmers and many officers from those organizations that communicate directly with the farmers, saying that there are privacy concerns, that many of the farming businesses, they didn't feel particularly safe knowing that even a paying agency that they maybe trust, they have in their hands a continuous monitoring tool. Particularly when we're all talking about this carrot and stick approach, that in the European Union, for example, there is the concept of penalties. So maybe they felt like this will not give them the room for error, the room to yes, maybe make a mistake, but also have the chance to save it, and avoid the penalties. And of course, the actual sharing of information that they felt is personal to them.
Yeah, this is also that came up. I mean, like beyond the ENVISION project, we also had that discussion during the recap project, where again was based on the same idea, like using global Earth observation systems for monitoring a system anyway, because there was like sensitive information, and especially when it was coming down to cross compliance, having, in addition to other records, access to also from data from the Earth observation platform, was a sensitive topic anyway. But I guess in some cases, farmers did also realize the benefit there in respect to monitoring their own business, and also more with the recap, there was could have also been used as an early warning system for them when not meeting the cross compliance rules. But at the same time, because we were providing them with the option of geo tagging some pictures, if there was any fail, or if there was no compliance with some of the regulation, they could demonstrate the actions that they've taken to amend this, and therefore there was also a benefit from the side of the farmer. But yes, indeed, it is an interesting and a very important discussion with farmers and everybody else involved into this.
And if I may add, Yiorgos and Lawrence, I think this highlights the importance for co-production, because bringing everyone on the same table and trying to demystify those concepts of, for example, we don't trust the paying agencies because we feel like they're just going to punish us, and all those things. If you bring everyone on the same table and try to get them to understand the different perspectives, then as Yiorgos mentioned, the farmers understand that, okay, this actually gives us the time to correct our submissions, for subsidies, for example, and it's not the other way around. So
exactly.
Yeah,
and I guess that's why we also I mean, agree to have this presentation today, because we want to generally demonstrate how useful co-production is, not only for this case, but generally when we are involving multiple stakeholders into innovation actions, how important it is to consider them while we are designing any product, services, any law.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks very much. And I've got another question, but I'm just going to remind people. So if you have a question, if you can raise your hand, you can use the raise hand button in the toolbar, or if you type it in the chat as well. I can see there's a question from Aniket. From where do you get the Earth observation data? Is it from a government agency like ESA or UKSA or any private organisation?
Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data that we're utilizing in the development of the algorithms. So mainly, it's our partner, the National Observatory of Athens and Agrabs, they are those that would have access to the data, and they will download the different data sets and shape files, etc. But it's mainly Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data, so ESA.
Okay, and is that open access data?
Yes, this is open access data.
And
this is funded from the Yiorgos, is funded from EU citizens and is made available from the European Union to all researchers, all citizens anyway.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that I think in any case that a country may not have direct access through ESA, for example, Serbia has their own server that they can get access to those Earth observation data from GeoSerbia, right? So they have considered, along with the development team, they have considered issues of accessibility, and they have already addressed those. Yeah.
Great, thanks very much for that. Okay, there's another question from Alex in the chat. So thank you for your talk. Has the use of UAV data come into the scope of this project? So that's unmanned aerial vehicle data come into the scope of this project?
As far as I know, we haven't used any data, but Yiorgos?
No, I was going to say the same, that of course the development team would be
in a better
best suited
to
answer this, but I think they rely solely on Sentinel-1 and 2 data, and it seems that they have a lot of experience using those for the specific services that they're trying to develop. Perhaps, you know, using more data and more precise data is always something that they are interested in. Yeah. But in the scope of ENVISION, I don't think they have.
So to add to this is, I know that we, you know, in ILVO, for example, the Belgium, the partners, they will have like some soil testing because they are working in particular with the soil organic carbon. So therefore, they will need to take different samples from the soil, which then they will use in order to train the algorithm with data from the satellites. I'm not sure if any drones will have used either in this case or in RECAP, but I'm sure that generally the algorithms have been fed with data that has been derived from on-spot checks, because that will add just value to the algorithm and also will validate the results, and therefore will better train the algorithm to recognize crops, for example. So the crop type algorithm has been trained since 2015 now, I think, or 16 anyway, so for some time now. So therefore, that's quite accurate. But still, we need to consider that cloud coverage, for example, in some cases, for example, the UK or in Lithuania, is not allowing, you know, an accurate estimation, but generally gives us a very good result.
And if I may, Yiorgos, I would say that exactly that UAV data might be used for validation, but for the purposes of ENVISION, you know, in trying to capture like that kind of scale, using UAV would not be that effective. So the reason why they're using satellite data is because they want to reinforce the monitoring of all the parcels in a country, so not just a specific area. And doing that with drones, for example, would be, not cost effective.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. It's a good question. Okay, so any other questions people would like to ask? So here I can't see any hands up at the moment. Understand. Okay.
Great.
Yep. So.
Just a comment, overall to the methodology and the process. When we started the project, as Yiorgos mentioned, like we had a very quite intensive 6 months, because the main challenge there in respect to the effectiveness of the co-production of services and especially with the overall success of the project is to engage the stakeholders at that early stage, make sure that the stakeholders will remain engaged in the duration of the project, and make them feel that they are actually equal partners into this process, because in some cases what will happen is that you will have the developers downloading the data or developing the platform, and us as researchers doing our own stuff, and then those people that they're actually those that they are on the field and they are doing the practical element of the work, they're not engaging or they're not feeling that they are part of the whole team. So what we tried with Yiorgos and the rest of the team, Alice and Simon, is to make sure that we have a strong presence throughout the program into all different events taking place, either in the the Trello, which is mainly the technical environment where the exchange of information is taking place, or during the business case development, or through the commercialization. Mainly because, as Georgios mentioned, as I've also emphasized, is the fact that through the co-production of services, we want to just serve the needs of everyone participating in the project, and therefore deliver something which at the end will be used and will be practical and useful for the end user.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much. So it's really helpful and very topical at the moment with some projects I'm working on as well, where we're trying to establish those relationships and maintain them. So
and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it requires quite strong commitment there.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So there's another question in the chat. So if people need to go for teaching or whatever, then it's totally fine. But we might carry. Yeah, not you two, but anyone else.
Well,
anyone
I have
else.
a lecture.
But if you've got time, could you explain a bit about the online tools and what kind of activities they ran with these? If you need to go, Yiorgos, maybe.
It's fine. I have my bicycle just parked outside, so I can do that.
Okay. Okay.
I think I can answer this question. So Yiorgos, by all means, if you.
That's fine. I have the time.
So we, as I said, we were in the unfortunate position to have to do everything online. So we had to replace essentially the environment of a room where we would bring everyone together and just have a casual conversation in a sense, and try to get everyone to write their responses on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard. And we found that we need to use Teams, obviously. We need to have a platform that allows us to record the conversation so that we can refer back to it, review it, and process the information in our own time, especially when we're talking about 4-hour workshops, 4.5 hours. And then we used Miro. Miro is just one of a great selection of tools that you can find online that will just give you the ability to build frames and tables and use the post-it sticky note function and ask for people in a timely manner, where we would have, let's say, a timer going for 5 minutes, telling them, okay, what are the first words that come into your mind when we're saying cross-compliance? So basically, just to get them understand, to get them actively involved in the discussion, that they understand what ENVISION can offer, what ENVISION is trying to address. So this need that Yiorgos mentioned for remote continuous monitoring. And then we had similar interactive sessions where we would ask them brief questions, and they would put those user stories that I mentioned again in a sticky note, so that we better understand their needs and concerns. So we had multiple sessions like that. Again, just to get you to understand it a bit more, maybe imagine that you're in a room and the facilitator asks you to take 5 minutes and in a piece of paper in front of you write down some sentences or taking turns, get on the board and write a sentence each for a specific discussion topic. Now, the themes of the discussions were multiple. Some of them I showed, for example, trying to identify limitations within the organizations or trying to understand their current workflows, etc. What else do we use? We used Qualtrics a lot in order to build surveys that we rolled out to understand what the level of awareness and engagement from different stakeholders is. So what are they being exposed in such frameworks? Do they understand the concept of co-production? Do farmers understand that they have the potential to affect decision-making in these projects? For example, if they participate in a co-production based project, farmers can have a saying in the actual end product. So we want to also understand how aware are the different stakeholders of their role in a co-production. So we did that through surveys. We're actually currently still doing it because you can never get many responses, too many responses. So yeah, I mean, these are basically the tools that we've been focusing on. I don't know if I'm missing anything too important, Yiorgos.
No, those were the main ones and the basic ones.
Great, thank you. It's really useful, and yeah, I need to get to grips with Trello. I haven't used it myself, but it looks like a fantastic tool. Okay, I think we better leave it there. So thank you to both Georgios and Yiorgos for your time today, and it's really interesting to hear about the processes you went through. Really interesting, in particular, to see how innovation actions work. I haven't engaged much with them myself, but it's a fantastic presentation. So I hope you can all join us again next week at the same time, same place. We'll be hearing from Richard Kipling from the Sustainable Food Trust about a global metric framework that they're developing for food systems in the Sustainable Food Trust, working with partners across the UK and around the world. So I hope you can join us for that. But thank you once again to Yiorgos and
Yiorgos is the same.
Yiorgos Square.
It's the same, yeah. But thank you to both of you for your time, and
Thank you.
thanks to all of you for engaging today.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much for your comments and questions. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.